decision.
I think
Oh.
like 3 of them were
So
high
follow
on
that
and others I don't know
recommendation.
never responded or not.
But it's not like a codified city rule.
To do with the
It's
address?
just
But I
a
believe there are at least
national
3
fire
that did
protection
respond.
agency recommendation.
I have it written down.
But they're trying to develop that big field, right?
Should
Out
be
front.
pretty easy to do one.
No.
No.
Oh, the one, oh,
No, the
at
one
the end.
they're behind.
Oh,
There's
okay.
like 2 or 3 paper roads back there.
Okay.
Basically double.
Are we ready?
Almost, it's not quite for it,
Okay.
but we are on there.
We had 2 guys that worked with the detention center.
Thanks for keeping us all out of jail, Liz.
Did they both pass their EP?
Yeah. Good one.
My favorite part of the job.
I'll bet. Takes up the greatest amount of your time.
Do you feel that should be more in line with
Yeah.
Lakeville?
Yeah. Well, with
One of the workshops I went to this
the one
morning
we were
was the
using
small
for
towns
Statesville,
roundtable.
the
I can't remember what town he's from, but they're getting all those nuisance for
300 yards or something, climbing
It's
a
a long
fence,
walk.
dragging a dump within a
so
short
much
time period.
staff talent.
All right, 4 o'clock. This Mayor and Council work session called to order. We'll take call of the roll, please.
Commissioner Donnie Carter. Commissioner Nina Forsyth.
Here.
Commissioner Kevin Grove.
Here.
Commissioner Adam Ritchie.
Here.
Mayor Todd Logsdon.
Present. Okay. First topic on the agenda tonight looks like 3A, so this is Pritchard Farm.
Okay, yes, thank you, Mayor. There's a few different things coming due for Pritchard Farm. First is the acceptance of the infrastructure deed for phases 1A2 and 1A3. Those phases have been complete. There's homes being built in those. Hayden accepted the infrastructure formally by letter about a year ago. But the last part of doing that before the city lets the bonds expire is to formally accept the roads and easements and right-of-ways that were part of the original construction plans and have them deeded to the city. So Michael Cohen is preparing those deeds now. I expect them to be ready at your work or at your council meeting next week. But just a formality, but it provides record that the city actually owns that infrastructure.
Okay.
The next is a new real estate tax set aside for phase 1A4 of Pritchard Farms. This is almost ready. Hayden is just needs to work with Brandon on making sure Hayden agrees with the construction estimates so that the bond stipulated in the RETSA/developers agreement reflects probable construction costs. So we're working on that, but this RETSA reflects the verbiage from 1A2 and 1A3, so nothing different there in terms of the structure or how it's internally managed, just the different lots that are affected. So that's kind of routine business at this point with Pritchard Farms. It's a lot easier for the developers to do these smaller phases incrementally than one large phase at a time, just because of the cost of the infrastructure. So, any questions on that? Okay, that would be a resolution as well.
Okay. How much ARPA money do we have left, Lydia?
$259,000.
Holy mackerel.
So, last 2 months ago, I'm sorry, when did we approve that? September. So 2 months ago, we came to you with some different projects for the spend down plan. And the things that were approved at that meeting were street lighting, control box, community center masonry, rec department, TV, FFD, electronic signage board, and sidewalk repairs. The first 3 of those have been purchased or we are under a contract on. The FFD electronic signage board, Lydia's going to talk to you about on how you want to proceed there. The sidewalk repairs, we specifically listed park, water, and other areas identified. Hayden looking more into Park Street, Water Street. The cost of removing the sidewalk and curb would require us putting it out to bid, and Hayden's just been managing a lot of other projects, and we just don't think we can get that done in a timely manner. So instead, looking for other things that we can use this federal money to pay for, that we can obligate before December 31st. By paying for certain things, it would free up money in the general budget to pay for other things that we previously discussed but maybe couldn't get done before December 31st. So that's kind of where we are now, is looking at what and how you want to pay for things and if there's anything else. So I'll let Lydia go over that itemized list, which you have in front of you. And I have it here that we can play with the numbers so we see how things come out. We've also removed food pantry, the 13,000 for construction's been up, or for acquisition. I think we'll be able to acquire it before the end of the year, but I don't think we'll be able to reasonably start construction and order enough materials to spend the 30,000. So that I would push to next year with just general city funds, but it would all come out in the wash, so to speak, financially.
Yeah.
So we met last week and came up with a list of some potential ideas. Hayden's were most of them. I don't know if you wanted to touch on any of them you want to advocate for. You have the list.
I don't think anything in particular.
The sidewalk adjacent to the armory.
Oh, yeah, so, with removing the big sidewalks on Water Street, and that just, it kind of became too big of a job to do in our timeline. So with kind of moving some of those funds around with a little bit left over, there's a chunk of sidewalk across from the armory which gets frequented by pretty much everyone who goes to the Frostburg Pool, Olive Elementary, like summer camps, all the village residents, and it's about an 85-foot chunk that's just missing that is pretty rough. So my thought was, if we get a little chunk of money, we can finish that sidewalk. It'd be good for the kids, it'd be good for the village, it'd be good for the pool, it's good for the armory. The two estimates I have so far are, the lowest is $12,373, waiting on a third bid, which should come today. But I think it's a fairly cheap section that we can slam in pretty quick, and it have a pretty big reward. And it's money that we would like to spend anyways. So that would be one I would push for. You know, it's a quick project, we can knock it out in about 3 days with a contractor, and I think it would have a big cost to benefit payoff. So there's no demo cost associated, obviously. We don't have to tear anything out. It's just finishing that section of sidewalk that was never put in. There's no easements to acquire because it's Frostburg Village. Well, we own the easement on the side of the road, and then anywhere where it comes a little too far off the side of the road, it's the Frostburg Housing Authority, who we work with very well, obviously. So there's no easements to buy, no homeowners to satiate. So it should be a very quick, easy project we can knock out well before our December 31st timeline. And obviously we could get it obligated by next Tuesday if that was something we wanted to go ahead with.
So I feel confident if you liked most of them down to the down payment option, that we would be able to put them in. Like starting Tuesday, we would be able to move forward with them. And specifically for the FFD sign, we're waiting on one more quote, which we should have by Friday. I don't know, just to protect the person who did quote already, if you want to zoom in on the amount. That's just for the board. And then there was another additional cost, under 5 for install. My recommendation would be to just move forward with the signboard alone and let them do the install.
It's not, it's installed, or is it like a movable one?
It would be installed on posts.
Okay.
Nothing fancy, just the post, but that would keep us I would think that we would move forward purchasing it ourselves, and that's under our procurement threshold, assuming that we get that final quote and it isn't less than that. So we'd be ready to move forward with that on Tuesday also.
Did you talk to Dane about the fire department being able to fund the 5,000?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and
And he was agreeable and figured that they would probably need to contribute something,
okay,
is what he said.
alright.
I can keep going if you want me to.
Yeah,
Got
go
more.
ahead.
For the salt facility change order, that's one that we've always kind of been expecting since the beginning of the salt building. The 21,000 of that comes from all the stuff we had to pull out of the ground before construction. And then we just found out today we have to add 2 lights into the bays for OSHA requirements. So about $2,000, that number's gonna come from Stevens Electric. We'll add to that. It should not be $25,000. We just marked it a little bit high to be safe. It should be in the $23,000 range, but that was kind of one that we had set that money aside, knowing that this was gonna come down the pipeline. Leak detection service, that is a new one. Got talking to the water department about potential projects we could knock out before our timeline ran out. And they said, well, there isn't really a glaring one that could come to mind for how much money we had, but something to spend a little bit of money on that goes a long way is leak detection. I mean, obviously, we're dealing with all this stuff with County and Midland with water. We used this leak detection company before. We actually plan to and usually budget for them about every 2 to 3 years. We're up on our 2nd year, so we were going to use them next summer anyways. They quoted me just about $14,000 to come in, do all of Frostburg, provide a leak detection report, and let us know where all of our leaks are. It's kind of another one of those things. It's a small amount of money to do a pretty big payoff. Last time we did it, we found a leak that was in excess of 100,000 gallons a day. So that goes a long way. They're really good. They're called Fluid Pinpointing Solutions. They actually gave us a pretty significant discount for this one, given that our whole system is mapped now. So they don't have to do any mapping themselves. They can just come in, listen, and go.
Hayden, just talking about those leaks, a lot of times leaks are underground, obviously, but they go into either a catch basin or a sewer line. So they don't surface, they just travel in the
Yeah.
ditch lines to another line.
Or a coal mine. We've had that before too.
So that's how it's happening. It's not that there's water bubbling and we're ignoring it. There's no surface evidence of it.
And if it goes into a sewer line, that means we have to pay for their.
Exactly.
Correct. Yeah. So I would highly recommend that one. A lot of reward for that one. The hydrological.
Hold on, Hayden, hold on. I feel like we've had concurrence for the top 3, correct?
I mean, I'm looking at the numbers there and like we've got 260,000 to spend and all of them only add up to 211. Why are we?
Or even talking about it.
Right, I mean, we have to spend it.
Okay.
Look if you
Well, then
trust
I
what
can-
we want to do with it, I guess, or like if you just want to move forward with
Party,
all of the
party,
projects
party.
that we've prioritized here.
Yeah. I mean, I can blow through with a really quick explanation for all of them if there are any questions. But
The hydrological study
So-
is for the potential well.
for Pace, yep. So $3,000 now is his just kind of initial review, all of his stuff to put together a package that we can then take to Pace and say, here's what we are looking at. This complete hydrologic program / well study is going to be about $100,000. MDE, please fund this. So the $3,000 is to get us ready for Pace. Audit is not my zoo. Diesel fuel tank at the water department, actually, no street department. Our diesel fuel tank rotted out through the bottom, so we had to get another one. That was the quote for the tank, the pump, everything that goes with it, and its housing. Water department dump truck bed patching, we initially planned on just replacing the bed, but we don't think we need to, so we're gonna go to Marshall Ruby for a patching. Water line locators, those are just tools that we use pretty much every day for doing locates.
Wait a minute, go back to the diesel tank. So you said we've already purchased that diesel tank?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's
Why
just
not?
it's just a decision of whether we're going to take it out of the regular
Oh, okay.
budget or our budget. Yeah. Waterline locator is just a tool we use every day for markouts and finding water lines, how deep they are, where they're at, etc. Chevy Blazer, not mine.
Do you want to talk about that, Elizabeth, as an option?
Yeah, so later on the agenda, I have
It's the next thing.
Okay, the new police vehicle. So, when I was at the ICMA conference, I had the opportunity to see the brand new Chevy Blazer EV police package. So it's specifically police equipped vehicle, similar to like the Interceptor that you're used to, or the Dodge Durango Pursuits. Much more spacious than Nick's ride of the Bolt. Fully equipped with, what are those people called that you arrest? Prisoners, there we go. Thank you. I couldn't think of that word. Like the cages for the prisoner transport, just everything, all the same features as the Durango, but full EV. Also able to be charged at Tesla charging stations, which I know has been an issue in the past when we've had to take the current EV down to Hagerstown for service. So reached out to Enterprise to see what the cost of that would be versus the Durango. The Blazer, they were telling me that they do like police vehicle testing in Detroit every year, like a competition. And the Blazer won in 0 to 60 acceleration, braking, and driver comfort compared to any of the police vehicles on the market. So that appealed to me. It's very slick looking. So total cost with fully equipped and everything, I just lost it, it's about $84,000. And then if we go back and look at if we go and look at the Durango fully equipped, that's $73,245. So it's about a $10,000 difference. Obviously, there's fuel savings by owning the EV, but there's still about a $2,000 like cost of ownership difference that makes, on paper right now with the unknown resale value of the Blazer and stuff, it's about a $2,000 difference in the Durango's favor in terms of total cost of ownership. But having, with the optimized renewable thing going on, the charging stations here in the parking lot, just, overall optics, I thought maybe the ARPA money could put a down payment on this vehicle that would subsidize it a little bit and put another EV in the city's fleet. So.
And we own the other EV?
Yeah,
It's not part of the lease.
it is Enterprise too, but we got a $10,000 grant for that one when we purchased it.
Okay.
So,
There's no grant for this one?
no, now that everyone is
Yep,
buying.
yeah.
Now that it's cool.
Yeah. So, but we have done, because of the Bolt and putting the down payment on, that's something that Enterprise does accommodate. So you could put however much money down on that, but just thought that might be something to consider to make it make more sense on paper.
I'm for that.
And then if you did want to do that, how much would you want to put down on that? And we could prioritize the rest of the projects. Or do you just want to use the balance of what's left after we move forward with all of these?
Well, we've got 48,000 left approximately, but we haven't talked about the attachments for the toolcat
Yeah.
or anything else. Why don't we,
There's about 3 more to go that are kind of built in as whatever is left over, we can quickly spend in about a week period to come up to that, to use all of our money. That would be the toolcat attachments, the paved Glendenning 1-inch overlay, and then the general government under 25,000. So, we can quickly spend I can get a quote from American Rental for toolcat attachments in a day, and quickly spend $25,000. Paving a portion of Glendenning, if we decide, hey, let's go and pave the parking lot, or just do a 1-inch overlay of the parking lot down by the bottom pond, get someone under contract for the spring, that money's obligated, and quickly knock out $20,000. The general government under 25,000 is what I would suggest to leave, to approve it, and then we wait until basically the last week and a half, 2 weeks of our appropriated time. If we have $2,000 left to spend, we can just go down to Lowe's and get a toolkit for the guys. So that those three are the ones that are flexible amounts of money that we can close the gap with at the end, if that makes sense.
Any comments or questions?
So if we're gonna pursue this, the EV, the Blazer, what are we thinking about as far as an appropriate down payment? If we've got 48 left,
What are we,
is 10 too much?
what's lease-wise, what are we paying on a vehicle?
I can pull that for you, Donnie. So right now, the Durango, if we were to buy the Durango new, that would be $13.34 a month.
Like, but what are we,
Like our
what's our
total
lease
monthly-
payment?
Oh,
I guess what I'm thinking of is if we can get the payment on this car down to what a typical lease payment would be, put that much down on it.
The payments are very different based on the type of vehicle. So like our trucks versus police cars.
Okay, so how about police cars?
Yeah,
That might be
like one of the police,
12 to 15,000 would get it back to like what we're paying on the Durango.
yeah. I would say something like that then, and just try to get it.
Okay.
Okay. I'm just gonna put 15,000 there.
Okay.
There's one other thing that's very random that just popped in my mind, but it's something, if you watch the recordings of these meetings now, since we have this new video encoder, it buzzes.
Right.
It's the projector that causes it to buzz. And according to my research with that company, we either need we need a different kind of encoder, but I like using that, or we need to get that on the same electrical circuit as the encoder, which I don't know if it's possible. Or alternative 3 would just to buy a big TV and put on the wall. And
So you wouldn't need a projector?
yeah, and hopefully that would eliminate the interference.
How big is that screen right there?
And maybe it won't vibrate like this.
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
could probably get like an 80.
Oh, yeah, you could get probably an 80 or 90 inch
Sam's
TV
Sam's
for
Club sells a 100-inch TV now,
less than $1,000, I would think. Yeah.
especially if we wait till Black Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Hayden, you're up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to Walmart.
TJ Maxx.
Perfect. That's a good idea.
and hopefully we could just run it would simplify things by being a TV.
Would it be hardwired into that wall?
I think we'd maybe spend 1,000 on the TV and then another 1,000 or 2 with Stevens Electric to make sure that we're not having the same issue.
I was gonna say, because they're gonna need to put
All of the HDMI stuff is on that wall, but maybe figuring out
They
how
can
to-
move how to run it up higher.
yeah.
Stick another outlet up there, so there's no cords, yeah, that's fine.
It's something to be able to support the TV.
Well, it should
whether-
come with that.
What-
Should-
it'll come with a bracket, but.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, is there the support in the wall?
Oh,
Yeah, there's
okay.
studs in the wall.
Yeah, you don't want it to be just drywall.
All that drywall's coming down. the
There
corner.
is a brick wall in there. Alright,
Okay, so then if there's no
So-
questions, or if you want to think about it, we'll do a general resolution next week to approve all of these projects. or-
Everything that's on that list, plus whatever she's about to write on there, the TV projector, tech upgrade, that's
Yes.
good.
So we'll do a general ARPA resolution that just approves them of our use of the ARPA funds, and then we'll do another resolution for the salt facility change order approval, and also approving of the FY24 audit costs.
Are we gonna do the toolcat attachments? Because that was another quick one that you
I
said.
guess where would you like to prioritize that in the list of the other
So
projects?
we put 15 onto the,
He just said like at the end, if we wait.
At the end?
See if there's money left, that's
See
something we
what's
can get done
left.
in a couple days.
Okay.
Yeah,
That
those,
would be,
those three, the pave Glendenning, general government, and Toolcat are ones that we can literally get contracted quickly in a day. The paving one would be a little bit longer because we would actually have to do some estimates and stuff with the paver, but the other ones are really quick turnover.
so what's our number then, Liz?
$242.
242, so that leaves 17, a little under 17, a little over 17,000.
Yeah, and I think, you know, see where we're at, we could throw that into one of those last three.
Yeah.
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 Thank you. Let me know if you'd like to add or delete anything by next Tuesday.
In case you're wondering, we pulled Braddock Estates drainage from ARPA just because BB&A hasn't finished the engineering on it yet. So we were going to be too up against it to try and get someone under contract. So what we did was we just scoped the project down a little bit to try and get as close to that state highway 8 money as what we have. We're still going forward with the project. We just didn't want to try and squeeze it in and not follow all of our procurement procedures before the end of the year for ARPA.
But if it is a little over budget, that would come out of the general fund, and these things are saving money in the general fund, so.
Right.
It should give us some leeway there. All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Different pot, same kitchen.
Right.
Yep.
All right, moving on then. We've already talked about item D, I guess, unless there's anything we haven't discussed.
No, that would just be a resolution to approve that purchase.
Okay. Item E, then the fee schedule amendments.
So once the water ordinance was approved last month, it changed the way we handle water shutoffs. So under the old method, a customer was assessed a penalty when they went on the shutoff list. That went away, so now there's only a penalty if the water department is notified to turn their water off. So we needed to revise the fee schedule so that it clearly states what is the amount of that penalty when they are notified for water shutoff. So what is recommended for your consideration would be the water shutoff penalty in the amount of $48. That's approximately 2 hours of a staff member's time, assuming they're sent out to turn the water off, and then at another occasion when the account is paid, they'd be sent back to turn the water on. So that's some of the logistics behind picking that number. And also changing the after-hours water reconnection fee. So if someone's water has been turned off, they need it turned back on after hours. The minimum after-hours overtime is approximately 3 hours of a staff member's time. So that $80 would cover that overtime. So that replaces the section of the existing fee schedule that has notification of water shut off and the water reconnection fee during normal hours, which has been $20. So those would be the changes that we would recommend.
So generally, kind of the philosophy behind getting rid of the shut-off notice plus reconnection fee is when people get in a financially difficult situation that they're behind, adding more fees doesn't really help. But we also don't want to make it that there's no penalty for getting your water shut off, because then our water department's going to be run ragged,
That's all they'll do.
shutting people off till they get paid. So it's, generally I think it will save our customers money. The fee is, and the fee's flat, it doesn't vary based on the balance due. So it should simplify things.
Yeah, I agree with that. As long as, I mean, the shut-off notice, that doesn't require anything more from us, so there's really no need to charge a fee. The punitive action of actually turning it off, that's fine.
Right, and even though under the new ordinance, we're not required to send any kind of special notifications, we did send out notices with this first group of accounts, because when their original bills went out, there was no statement on there saying if you don't pay by a certain date, you would get a shut-off fee. We're doing it this way through 3D accounting software. It works very well. I think it would be very simple and helpful to do that going forward, but we did not send them certified mail, so that saves a lot of money. If we find that we still have a lot of people who don't pay, and there is a lot of turning water off, turning water on, then we can always reevaluate these fees when we look at the fee schedule for the next budget year, in just a few months.
Okay.
That would be a resolution.
Some data.
All right. Next item F, change order for Phase 10A.
This is just a paperwork issue. So for 10A, there's 4 change orders. They're labeled 1, 2, 3, and 4. They are labeled that way because that's the order in which we discovered them. However, the order in which they will physically happen is 3, 4, 1, 2, and MDE has asked us to change those names to 1, 2, 3, 4, in which they will the order in which they will physically happen. But to do that, we have to do a amendment. So this is to change the names of the change orders.
So we previously approved change order 3 and 4, and we'll just do a resolution to change change order 3, 4 to change order 1 and 2.
That's an MDE.
I know.
An MDE, special requests.
But at least it's an easy one.
This is your government in action, ladies and gentlemen.
Is this about the whole retaining wall?
Yeah, so the retaining wall and then taking that sewer line out of the.
Which is coming along really nice. I just drove by it today. It's looking good.
About time.
That was a headache.
Tell me about it.
They had the sidewalk about probably 2/3 of the way done.
I'm very happy. So
All right, I lost my place. Item G, Housing Authority appointment.
Okay, so this is just kind of a cleanup request from the Housing Authority. Their terms, they made their request for appointments, the expiration of the terms, there was an error in that in the past, so that they're conforming to their bylaws, they're asking for you to approve the terms for these 3 individuals. And then there's 2 vacancies, and that's just notifying us. You don't need to do anything there, but it would just be cleaning up those terms. So if there's any questions, I can reach out to Ashley at the Housing Authority. Otherwise, that would be a resolution.
There's a discrepancy in length.
Yeah.
So they do not have
Yeah.
people available. They haven't selected who they want for those 2 vacancies yet? Okay.
If you know anyone, I'm sure they would appreciate a recommendation.
Yes, I can tell you that I was on that board.
I see that for 25 years.
25 years.
I see that.
And I decided not to continue. Thought 25 years was enough time.
Well, Chief, you're in just about every other club and organization in town. You're familiar with the terrain over there.
true. True. Something else to get into.
All good on that one?
That's fine.
Okay.
All right, special items then under H.
Okay, so first, the Spirit of Frostburg Award that is being presented to the Coal Miner Memorial Committee. So that information and presentation is being prepared to be presented next week. And I believe Ms. Renee Bone from the foundation will be the presenter. And then there'll be 2 proclamations. American Express reached out to the mayor to do the Small Business Saturday proclamation, and of course, Frostburg First always has a big to-do for that in town. And then November is also Municipal Government Works Month, and in order to be named in MML Banner City, celebrating municipal government works is a part of that. So we'll have some social media posts, but we'd ask you to do a proclamation as well.
There's some ideas on there about other things to do for municipal government work, some of which we've done in the past.
Yeah, and I think with some of the school age tours we've already done here, going into a classroom won't be necessary this year unless you want to do that as well.
I do it every day.
Yeah,
can
there
sign
you go.
something.
There you go. So, but we'll work on that so Frostburg can retain its banner city status. so Kevin can be proud.
I don't know, is there something we want to highlight, or that you want to highlight when you do your mayor's report?
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, we can
Yeah,
think about that offline. Yeah, I should say something about that in the next report that I do for that, yeah, for WFWM.
Generally on social media, just try and do some sort of highlight of just the work that everyone here does that's behind the scenes. The police department gets a lot of credit, but the guys that are fixing the water leaks in the middle of the night or handling permits and code enforcement tend to get more grief than compliments.
I think we should get Jay a body camera.
So recognizing that the work that those people do is equally as important to making Frostburg a great place to live.
and our finance director who
Yeah,
makes
making
sure that
sure
we
the bills are paid. Exactly.
that we don't get into the red.
Okay.
Okay. And then Bethany's ordinance regarding property maintenance, the public hearing will be for that.
Okay, very good. All right, so that's all that's expected to come up for the meeting there, I guess. So moving on then to item 4A, utilities protection proposal.
So when we were discussing the water ordinance a few months ago, I had brought it to your attention that there's a company that offers insurance for homeowners for leaks. This company also offers the insurance that they sell directly to the consumer, that if they have a water leak, their insurance would come in and pay for those repairs. But this is specifically for insurance just to cover the high water, this water and sewer bill. So Elaine and Trevor and I had the opportunity to meet with Servline. They're endorsed by National Rural Water Association, so that is they're a partner with them, so that's a big deal in terms of their credibility and their product. But the way their program works is similar to ours in that if you have a leak, you have to document that the leak was repaired with either invoices or receipts and photos. What's different is if you're a residential customer and you have a leak and you call the finance department saying, what do I do? Now the finance department will say, call this number.
So it's not insurance,
It is insurance through them directly.
but they require it after a leak? You said if they have a leak and they call the finance department, then the finance department brings them in?
Yeah, they would have to have the insurance ahead of time.
Yeah.
The finance department's just sending them to that.
Yes, so if this were to be in effect, if someone called and said, I have a high water bill, instead of the finance department handling the leak adjustment, the finance department would just refer them back to Servline and say, you have leak adjustment insurance through Servline, please contact them.
So this is insurance that individuals would buy?
Well, I'll
Okay,
explain.
okay.
I'm with Nina, I'm not sure where we come into this.
So there's two options. One is the cost of the insurance could be baked into your water rate, which every residential customer in the city would have it. Option two would be, it could be added to everyone's water bill as a separate line item, and then they could opt out. If they would choose to opt out, that meant the city would get rid of their leak insurance policy for residential customers, or leak adjustment policy for residential customers, and then if their homeowner chose to opt out, there is no leak adjustment. It would everyone would automatically get it, but there would always be the opt-out option, and that would show up on the bill as our water bill as a separate option.
So this would require us to then change the ordinance, or what we just did.
Yeah,
when
with
we
the
passed
leak
that
adjustment
ordinance.
policy.
It would require us to get rid of that.
What is the cost?
So, because we have inside meters primarily, not outside meters, our rates are, for residential is pretty, reasonable, in my opinion. So a 2,500, so the cost of leaks is going to go down with the transition to monthly billing. So the leak amount is going to go to be a third of what they were in the past. So those are the three coverages. They pay the full amount over the average utility bill.
But your leak has to be at least 2 times your normal consumption.
The leak has to be twice as much, so not the total. So, in other, just to use round numbers, if my average bill's 1,000, in order to qualify for this, would it have to be 2,000 or would it have to be 3,000 and the leak is the 2,000?
It would be probably part of the water portion of the bill, not anything else. So, yeah, so you're not talking,
I don't recall, is it double your consumption or double above your
like
consumption?
most, your water bill portion of your bill is
I think
probably
it was in
$50
that
a month. So.
Right, I meant, I meant
Yeah,
the
I had
volume,
to
the
get
gallons.
clarification. I just remember seeing the 2x in the presentation. I think it's 2 times your normal, not 2 times above.
Yeah, it's just double what it normally would be.
I see.
Because we run into situations where people have a $112 utility bill because they only use 2,000 gallons a month, and when they use 2,500 gallons, or 2,000 gallons a quarter, and then when they use 2,500 gallons, they just are losing their minds. And that wouldn't be eligible for a leak. And this offers a leak adjustment or leak insurance payout, whatever, once a year. And then Surfline pays the city directly. So the homeowner would just pay what their liability is, what Surfline tells them, and then they pay the city the balance to make the account in good standing.
And it's up to us to choose, I saw, if you scroll up.
Yes.
So,
And I know,
so we can choose whether we're doing, which limit of protection? Okay. To offer to.
yes,
Would this be something that they could select on their own? We could put in front of customers and say there's 3 levels of protection, or we have to pick one and it's the same for everyone?
I don't know the answer.
I think for simplicity, we would want to
That's fine,
just offer
that's fine.
one option.
I like the
Yeah,
opt-out,
that'd be
I like the opt-out provision. I'm not sure I'm okay with forcing this on people, but if there's an opt-out provision, I think that's fine.
I prefer that too, because we're being transparent in our water rate
Yeah.
more so.
Yeah.
And we're not adjusting the water rate to include this.
Right.
So this would just appear as another line item on their bill with CSO and Chesapeake Bay and whatever else. Okay.
And there's a lot to discuss here. I just kind of wanted to get you thinking about it. We would not want to implement this until July 1st, and it's about a 45 to 60 day implementation window, so you don't really, if we had your approval by March, that's kind of the timeline we're looking at, but I know we discussed it, so I wanted to put this in front of you. Some other things to consider is the commercial and then the multifamily. If you're going with the opt-out, I think that's an easy thing to offer, but if you offer it, that means you're taking away your leak adjustment, so. And then on the multifamily especially, that's expensive.
Well, but there again too, their leak adjustment, or their frequency is much more generous than ours. We just approved once every 4 years, and they're saying you can do it once a year.
Yeah. So, this is attached to the agenda, and I can email it if that's easier for anyone to take a look at. I can email you the presentation that went along with this. Think about it, and I'll probably circle back in January, if that works.
Okay.
But generally, you like the concept of moving in this direction rather than this.
Yeah, it just seems like it would take a burden off of Elaine's department, yeah.
Yeah. It's better coverage for the consumer at less than a cup of
Yeah.
coffee
Yeah.
cost, and
Did you say you would email this.
Yeah,
This.
I'll
Yeah.
there's a like a PowerPoint that goes along with this too, so I'll email you that too. And the quote.
Their representative would be willing to speak to the mayor and council
Yeah.
directly. She
Yeah.
offered that.
You want to just plan on that in January, as I'll schedule her to present virtually, or she's in Pittsburgh, so she might even be able to come here if the weather's decent.
Okay.
Sure,
So,
yeah.
okay, perfect. I'll take care of that. Okay. You just want me to keep rolling, Mayor?
Yep, go ahead.
Keep rolling.
Okay,
You're on a roll.
sorry for all my talking tonight. I've talked to the mayor about this somewhat. With the addition of the coal miner memorial, the addition of the new Mechanic Street parking lot, the House and Garden Club potentially asking the city to water more flower baskets to keep Main Street beautiful. I would like to hear if you'd be willing to consider hiring a part-time landscaper from Mother's Day to September sometime, going forward. I don't exactly know what that would look like, but wanted to feel you out on that in terms of preparing for the budget, and starting in February. Whether we would hire a part-time person ourselves or contract with a landscaping company to do the work. I think my preference would be the first, because we could have them supervised by our staff and make sure they're doing what we want. But there's just so much weeding and potentially watering and,
Grass cutting.
and
Would they do that? Would they-
our guys generally take
Yeah.
care of the grass as is, but there's, I mean, even just this blowing, pulling the weeds, it's like no one's real responsibility, so a lot of that stuff gets done because the weeds get to a point that I'm annoyed and I call somebody and ask them to pull the weeds. So, if we could just, I think that would,
I think this kind of goes along with the next item, C, where we might be able to wash this out to where it's not as big of a financial hit as it possibly could be. So maybe we want to blend this with item C.
okay,
And we also did not hire any seasonal laborers last season that were budgeted.
mhm,
Because of the drought, but each year we have been budgeting some money for the seasonal, people in Parks and Rec, and
yeah.
did not use any of that last fall.
Well, I was wondering when I was, sometimes I park in the new parking lot, and I was wondering about, the planting was really nice, and I was really wondering about upkeep.
Yeah.
Because planting it's not just one and done.
No.
And then with the clematis, and if it's dry, you can mulch as much as you want to, but if we get a drought like this, we're really gonna need somebody to take care of those things.
Yeah. And I think, although this isn't a necessity, I think people that visit Frostburg notice Frostburg
It makes
because
a
of the
big
flower
impression.
baskets and stuff. With that new parking lot and the buyer retention, like that's a lot of upkeep.
Yeah.
And one other aside, as a revenue source, the coal miner memorial have money to upkeep that. So I spoke with Barb, and she would definitely, I think the foundation would definitely be agreeable to give the city money to pay for this person to also take care of the
To
coal miner
supplement that.
memorial. So that would help a little bit as well.
Okay.
Okay, so
And then around the depot as well. Oh dear.
that one's tough. That's county owned, and I know we have one resident, an involved citizen that's very concerned about the lack of maintenance there. So it might be something we do talk to the county about, and how they could assist us, whether it's with materials or money or something. But it does need some attention.
Considering all the visitors that converge on that, it's really important to make sure it's well
So rental housing, Jay Hobatter that works for Bethany, he spends about 15 hours a week doing code enforcement for the city, and his other 25 hours are spent at Parks and Recreation. And then Mary Gracie is our rental housing program manager, coordinator. And so she handles all of the paperwork. There's a little over 1,800 rental units in Frostburg right now. In 2014, so Donnie is the only one that remembers these fun times. And up until 2014, for a long period of time, we had our own rental housing inspector. We had some staffing challenges around that, and ultimately, the mayor and council and I worked together on the new rental housing ordinance that made the rental housing inspector a contractual arrangement with people that wanted to comply with the provisions of the rental housing code rather than having an in-house staff person do it. Currently, we have 2 rental housing inspectors. They've been doing it for the past 8 or 10 years. And one of the 2, she has indicated that she doesn't want to do it after this current calendar year. And the other one, he does it in addition to all of our building inspections already for the city. Financially,
He doesn't do that.
John,
Somebody else in his office does, yeah.
so what Jay has come to me with is he thinks that it would be in the city's best interest to bring that back in-house, where the city has control over the training and the extent to which these inspections are being done. Jay is willing to do that and transition full-time into the community development department as the inspector. They're running, with the third-party inspectors, they're running into issues with the property owners canceling an inspection, and then it's kind of a nightmare for Mary to keep on top of the property owners and the inspector to reschedule these inspections. So that's one of the issues. I think Jay in his code enforcement activities has done a really good job of being diplomatic about things and being really fair and cordial, which are the things that I know are important to Donnie. But
Should be for all of us, actually.
and not that our third-party inspectors aren't, but it can. I think with us losing one of our 2 inspectors and losing potentially the option, and then Jay saying that this is something that he'd be willing to do. Wanted to bring it to you for your consideration. Cost-wise, right now, rental housing registrations, if they are done on time, they're $40 a year. We require a rental housing inspection once every 3 years, and we pay one of the inspectors $50 an inspection. So at roughly 600 inspections are to be done a year times $50 an inspection, we're paying $30,000. I'm sorry, I needed a calculator to do that math. We're paying them about $30,000 a year. So that would support the difference in base salary. But it's being with what the past has been, this has been a challenge. It's worked smoothly for the past 10 years with the contractual arrangement. It's just, there's a little uncertainty about the future of that contractual arrangement. So I wanted to bring it to you for discussion. I don't know how you feel, Donnie. You're the one that's...
I think Jay would probably do a great job. The problem is,
Who's next?
who's next, and the history we've had with this position has been a nightmare. It, for one person to do 600 inspections a year and do the other code enforcement, it doesn't happen. And what was happening when Mark was here is Mark would do whatever he got to. Like, so say there's 1,800 places. If he did 200 this year, 200 next year, and 300 the next year, he'd done 700 inspections. Well, his idea was that 3-year window went back, I'm going back to number one. There was a time when my house was on Linden Street, didn't get inspected for 10 years because nobody, like, they just get to the end of the book or to the end of the time and go back to number one.
Well, to go off of what Donnie's saying too, so if we have 1,800 rentals and they're to be inspected every 3 years, 600 a year, assuming that Jay never takes vacation, if he works 52 weeks a year, he'd have to do 11 a week, so he's doing 2 or 3 a day on top of his code enforcement.
And I think in reality, if they're all single unit rentals, that takes time. You're spending an hour at a unit. But then you have like Frostburg Heights, which is 100 units. You're gonna knock that out in a week or less.
He just did the hotel and he was probably there for 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
So
So,
that's 20.
and you know, you have a lot of and if you spread out the large multi-units in between this, I think that's doable. The other difference from when Mark was here is now we have Mary who's doing all the paperwork, and we also have iWorks, which is a database managing it instead of an Excel nightmare, which is how it was 10 years ago. So technology, and then Mary in that support role, if she was doing all the paperwork and all Jay was doing was the actual field inspections, but she was making sure they were being done and scheduled, Mark was doing all of that. So,
I think you're right. I think they would do right now work really well together.
They would. I just, the worry is you're just going to have to be very careful who you hire for that position, because
By the same token.
when you give somebody a badge, it goes to their head.
Well, by the same token,
I mean, not like these guys are trained. You know what I mean? Yeah, Mark and the Mark before him, they would go out and it was, this is how it's done, and screaming matches with landlords and stuff over stupid things.
by the same token, we don't know who might replace the 2 inspectors we have now, so.
That's true.
The whole future is a little.
The way it is now, though, me as a landlord, I mean, it used to be 3 of them. There's the list. You can pick who you want to do it. So, if you don't get along, if you know that you had a bad experience with the last one, you can pick somebody else or whatever. There's that opportunity. Again, like I said, I think Jay would be fine doing this, but what worries me is, Jay and I are the same age. We're not going to be working, that much longer, I hope.
You got 15 or 20 left, didn't you?
Jay, when he started with the city full-time, he at the time said, I've got 10 years. So let's say we have 8 years of Jay. And I think we've learned some valuable HR lessons in the last 10 years. And maybe we'll send any future rental housing officer to a psych eval before hiring them, like the police do, and make sure that they have the right temperament for the job. But
I think the other thing is, I have read some horror stories about corruption in inspections. If people are, if somebody's open to a bribe, I think it's easier to catch if it's in-house than if it's somebody you're not overseeing. So if we don't know who we're going to be hiring, that's another possible headache.
Not unlike people that inspect water treatment facilities. It would be easier to handle if it were in-house.
yeah. So
Who said that?
I know Jay was working. Bethany, do you have some? I asked you to prepare some numbers. What else did we talk about today?
I think we covered most of
Okay.
it. I have the total number of units, total number of inspections per year, the gross revenue that we make from the rental housing program, the gross annual payout, and our net profit. And then I ran those numbers for the triannual basis as well.
So that 30,000, that's the amount that we're paying out to the third party
On average.
on average. So we're putting that back in the bank, which is probably enough to pay that part-time landscaper that we were just talking about.
That's why
Mhm.
you mentioned that, okay.
But then would you
I'm
be
not just good
backfilling and
looking.
hiring
I'm
someone
also
else in
pretty
Parks and Rec?
I haven't addressed the Parks and Rec conversation directly, but I think what we would probably do is move towards just an additional seasonal grass mower in Parks and Rec. This year was not an issue, but man, there's some times that it's impossible to keep up. And they've been, we have a volunteer that helps mow grass, but he's pretty old and his health varies, so I don't think we can always count on that volunteer. But again, a part-time grass mower, weed whacker, I think is what we would look to replace Jay with in the Parks and Rec side of things.
You say you haven't spoken with Parks and Rec yet about it?
I mean, Jay has talked to Gene about it. Gene did tell me that this morning, but I think, I don't think that they're expecting that they would get like a full-time replacement employee in any shape or form, but rather than just a seasonal help. So, the two $15,000 seasonal helps.
Alright, anything else on that? And
So that I think we're gonna have to change the rental housing code to make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, we were planning to make some major updates to the rental housing program anyway. So that would be incorporated into that.
So I think timeline-wise, that could be introduced in December, hopefully adopted in January. We would just not send out the normal January inspection letters until after the new code was in effect. And just say, this is the new code, this is how you schedule. So the timing isn't perfect, but I think we can work to get it there.
Okay.
Everyone okay with Bethany and Jay and whatever extent I needed drafting that and working with Michael Cohen? Okay.
Alright, cigarette receptacles, sorry.
Dispenser.
Sorry, receptacle.
He's still thinking revenue.
That's right.
So, we've been approached by someone who has offered to donate some cigarette receptacles that are similar to, they actually attach to the trash cans themselves. They're not the freestanding units that I've heard the ones that we installed in the past have walked away. So that would not be the case with these. And like I said, it was offered to us to be donated. I believe Elizabeth spoke with Shane,
Yes.
who is willing to empty those.
Two
Yeah,
similar ones,
we did a litter index in 2021, and by far cigarette butts are the litter of Frostburg.
You could even put them on the parking meter post.
Yeah, they're pretty flexible with how they can be attached to things. I don't have the exact number, but I just wanted to see if you all would be agreeable to moving forward with those.
If they're free, sure.
Yeah. Okay. They're
Yeah,
a little more
we'll take-
eye-catching than the
we'll
other
take
ones,
500
so
of 'em.
people might notice them more.
Yeah, we can sell them on the side.
That's right.
There's revenue.
Sell them Cumberland.
And they do empty the Main Street trash cans twice a week, so they would kind of get a sense if they needed to be emptied twice a week, or it could be once every,
It's probably every couple weeks, but they do
Yeah.
go up pretty quick.
so.
And once in a while they catch on fire.
Oh, yeah, that's, what are they made of? I'm assuming some.
They're not.
mixed
They're
in,
not.
yeah.
Yeah, all fancy and smoking sometimes.
Good idea.
Excellent. All right, so funding meeting for for PACE, okay.
So we touched on it earlier with the ARPA discussion. there's a couple things going into this with our train of thought, staff-wise, is that next summer and the following summer, we're going to be completely inundated with CSO work. On top of that, once that CSO work is done, we will have reached our threshold of percentage of separation that MDE wants us to do anyways. So, for all intents and purposes, we do not have to pursue more CSO work. I would not recommend taking that approach long-term with MDE because the more money that they can give us for doing roads and sidewalks and water lines and sewer lines, the better. That also goes into the fact, though, that the funding for the CSO work has really changed. It's a lot more loan and loan forgiveness. And if we're already taking on close to $3 million worth of loan, $3 million worth of loan forgiveness that we will be paying on for the next 10 years with Phase 10B and 10C, it might not be worth taking on any more loan and loan forgiveness anyways. So, with that being said, my proposal for PACE this year is to propose a fourth water source for the city of Frostburg, which would be our well drilling project that would happen at Piney Reservoir. The reason being is that we would not ask for more water. MDE, or the state of Maryland, technically owns all of the water in the state. You have to go for an appropriation permit to take out additional water per day. So we would not be asking for more water, which sounds counterintuitive. We are just asking for a fourth source of water. Given that we just had a severe drought, next summer I have to plan for the, can't call it an inevitability, but I have to plan for worst case scenario, meaning Coney and Midland are still in our system. We have a terrible leak in the summer, and we're in a terrible drought. If that is the case, our sources of water, the three that we have, would be pushed really hard.
So you're not asking for a volumetric increase?
Correct. We are asking for a fourth source. So if we're making 300,000 gallons of water a day, right now it's 100,000 gallons per source. If we get this well, that I'm hoping for, then it would just be 300,000 gallons of water a day, split 4 ways now. So it's less of a tax on each source. So the $3,000 of ARPA money was to pay for the hydrologic engineer to do a hydrologic study, get everything ready, so that at PACE, I can go to everyone at PACE and say, here is the long and the short of it, given our situation, given our circumstances. Will MDE fund the next engineering phase, which is going to be in the $80,000 to $120,000 phase of paying a hydrologic engineer to actually go and do the actual well drilling, the testing, the design for the pump station that will tie into our water line, everything. Then the following year, we go to MDE again and say, designs are done, everything is ready, we are shovel ready, can you now fund us to drill this well and build this pump station? That's a super long explanation, typically for me. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to talk about it. If anyone thinks we should still pursue CSO stuff, I can start putting that together. The really only CSOs we have left are Hill Street and Frost Avenue. They're not 100% shovel ready, especially because Columbia Gas is looking like 2027. They're coming through Hill Street anyways. So that might fit our timeline in about 3 years to try and hit that CSO. In conjunction with Columbia Gas, I don't put a lot of faith in what Columbia Gas tells me. But my proposition for PACE is that is the phase 2 of the well drilling, which is asking for the funding for the engineering and design.
I think too that, with as much CSO as we have going on for the next couple of years, I think it's all right to kind of go a different direction.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of town torn up now. So, hold on.
I think Frost Avenue is just going to take a lot of pre-planning that we don't need to have 6 other CSO projects going on while trying to pre-plan for Frost Avenue on top of that.
Yeah, I think it's good if we can get through Washington Street.
So Frost will be the following year's project? maybe?
Yeah, I would think just ballpark 2028 would be whenever we would ask for the funding, hoping to get working on it before 2030.
they're not gonna ding us
You
for not
guys are all
completing
planning
it.
your retirement.
So they're not gonna ding us for not completing it by, in the 20-year timeframe?
Well,
That's another discussion that we're going back and forth with, but they asked us to get to, what was it, 85%? And we're gonna be, by the time we're done with phase 10, we're gonna be at like 96, 97.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
all of the consent orders for, between Frostburg and Cumberland are tied together, and they're making us remain tied together. I can't talk a lot about this because of just attorneys
Yeah.
being involved, but, we're in the negotiation process on an updated consent order. It's very slow going, and Cumberland is, their work is decades out probably, so pushing Frost back a little bit isn't really going to hurt Frostburg.
Yeah. MG is also a financial organization at the end of the day too, and they do care about cost versus reward. And with some of the Hill Street and Frost Avenue stuff, the cost versus reward for the amount of sewage that is taking out of the streams, that being your reward, it doesn't always justify the $7 million cost that Frost Avenue might entail. So they're also open to that negotiation process with that as well. So.
How much sewage goes out onto Frost Avenue? Because my little side of the street goes out the back.
It depends on what part of Frost Avenue you're on. It's not a ton, but there is still, the upper half of Frost Avenue still comes down the middle. And then, like we talked about before, the big thing with Frost Avenue that we would push for is the water line. Looping that into the project as well. It's there. They would be on our maintenance schedule, and it'd be nice to get those funded. So.
Okay.
And while we're on the topic of PACE, it is January 16th would be the pre-PACE funding meeting that Hayden's been talking about. Usually that's scheduled for the afternoon. The reception's Thursday the 16th, and breakfast is the following day. So I just need to know from senior staff and council who plans to attend. I've got some hotel rooms booked. We might have to share rooms, which is fine, I think. But I need to order your tickets in the next 30 days to get the early, well, you guys are free, but staff, I need to get the tickets ordered, so if you would let me know if you are interested in attending, I'll get that taken care of.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, anything else with that? Okay, item F. Item F, downtown building stabilization funding.
All right, the mayor's looking at me, so.
This was your idea.
Okay, so, specifically today we're talking about the Diamond Building. The developers Green Bench Companies bought that building 2 years ago with planning on doing renovations. In the process of getting into the building, it turned significant structural issues were discovered. They knew they were going to have to do some realignment, consolidation of apartments because of the way the building was laid out. There was apartment units with the bathroom across the hall that you couldn't even stand up in the bathroom, and so obviously they knew they couldn't just put lipstick on that. But they got into some major structural issues where load-bearing walls are not resting on anything that is secured to the basement floor. I have a couple pictures on my phone. I'm sure if anyone wants a tour of how it is now, they'd be happy to provide it, but it's been completely gutted. But so they've spent about, I won't get into the numbers because that's their personal business, I can share it with you offline if you're interested, or we could go to closed session at another time. But anyway, they have some loan money secured, but because this project turned into a bigger project than they anticipated because of the structural issues, they have a gap. And part of that gap, they're proposing funding with George Edwards Fund money. The George Edwards Fund is not a pot of money the city has gone after directly. The county has been proposing a lot of projects to the George Board, as it is affectionately called. Private developers have been putting in applications to the George Board. City of Cumberland has. I've just kind of stayed away from it because we've had success with other funding through Community Legacy that Bethany gets or what have you. Okay, so anyway, they go to the George Board. Well, you recall us talking about doing the revolving loan fund with the George Board and the county. No one liked that idea. Okay, so come back for just the Diamond Building project for $600,000 request to the George Board. And the George Board came back with saying they want to see Frostburg have skin in the game. So the mayor, the mayor and Bethany and I met with Jake Shade, who is staff to the George Board, Commissioner Caparelli, who is Allegheny County's vote on the George Board, Jason Bennett, county administrator, and Nathan Price, to just hash out maybe what would be a palatable funding mix for this project. And what was discussed and I think agreed upon in concept, but subject to your approval and the county commissioner's approval, would be if the city of Frostburg threw in $25,000, the county threw in $25,000, George Board would come in with $225,000 in this current fiscal year.
That was 275.
Well, that would total 275, and then we'd go to the George Board.
Right.
Oh, no, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. I'm sorry. 275 this fiscal year, and then the county would go back, or Green Bench would go back and ask for an additional 275 July 1. Green Bench doesn't love the idea because it's not guaranteed, but it seems palatable to everyone involved. The mayor and I, and Bethany in that meeting discussed that this is not something the city does. The city's historically very fiscally conservative, but there's also the part that Diamond Building has sat since 2012, 13, 14, as have other large buildings on Main Street. And maybe this is a small risk to take that turns the tide for at least one building.
Does Cumberland have any participation in this?
Yes,
And what are they doing?
The Rosenbaum, I think they have 100,000 in, which is, and then I think there's, they have money in a couple projects.
Because one of the original, when we had the discussion about the loan funding program that was originally presented to us, it was pitched back to us of, can't the city just throw in 100,000 or 200,000? To which Elizabeth and I pumped the brakes and said, whoa, for some people, $100,000 is a lot of money. I mean, I don't know about the city of Cumberland or whatever that has a much larger operating budget than us, but no, we don't do that. And I know that Donnie and I have spoken before, and others have spoken, that we're not just a bank. We're not just giving out coupons to everything. But
And one other thing, Bethany and I had the opportunity, and Commissioner Grove had the opportunity to meet with Secretary Day, who's the Secretary of Department of Housing and Community Development, the other week. And we specifically talked about that building at length and the challenges. And there's just not a lot of cash on the table available right now. the county did have that $500,000 grant application in. They were gonna follow back up with DHDD and say, hey, we really still could use that money. But I don't know, with the state's budget issues, I don't know how much money is going to be coming to Frostburg from that source. There's not a lot of money to fix up housing that in this instance, because it would be market rate professional housing, most of their programs are directed to low income housing or income based housing. So that's not really applicable here. They do have some loan programs we could encourage them to look into that might save them some financing costs, but no real silver bullet here.
Go ahead.
Like I said before, I think there's not a building on Main Street that's worth what they're proposing to put into that building. And if any bank decides that they're gonna loan on that, that's up to them. I think it's crazy, and I think you're opening up a can of worms. Because there's a lot of other buildings out there that are sitting.
We talked about that, and I specifically mentioned that, because then developers for other empty buildings that are in various states of readiness, or that have various stability and funding, however you want to diplomatically say it, are gonna, I agree with what you're saying about opening the can of worms here, but, I mean, I don't know what to do. It's not doing us any good right now.
And the nice thing about it having 17 units in it is that 17 more people living downtown, 17 people paying, or maybe let's say 30 people if their couple is paying income tax. So the payback period on $25,000 is not a long time. The city earns more than that in interest just on the ARPA money that we have in the bank. So, which is kind of bonus money right now.
Were you saying this is a loan or?
This would just be grant because
Grant,
it's such a
'cause it's
small
small
amount.
Well, here's a question. What can we do to ensure that this building's gonna be done? Because the other thing that's irritating to me is a lot of these buildings out there that have been sitting, that we've thrown money into, that haven't done very little anyway, over, like, and I mean, that's not the biggest thing, because we could give them $25,000 and 5 years from now, we're still looking at the same building. Because we have no legs to do anything with that.
And, that's the advantage of doing loan forgiveness, but then you're spending, at what dollar amount does it make sense to do it that way when you're paying all the attorney fees to get the loan origination and everything set up? So, we could do a grant agreement that says we're only going to reimburse you or something. You have to document that you're spending money on something that we're going to reimburse you in that form or fashion.
We could do it like the DEP, like how we request money from them for reimbursement, we have to prove to them that we spent it.
Yeah. And that's how Bethany's community legacy grants work. It's not foolproof. It's definitely not foolproof.
So it's more like an investment for us to.
It's investing in the latest and greatest ShamWow or whatever. No, I don't know. I think, Greenbench has a track record in Frostburg. They've bought several properties. They've invested in these properties. They continue to invest in our community. They do nice work.
Yeah, they're good to work with. I like working with them.
Their construction manager lives here, so there is a local presence. They are and they have a big portfolio, so they are professionals at this. So I think, I mean, it would,
Yeah, they're not like a hairy homeowner trying to.
Yeah, I mean, I am encouraged by, like you said, they have a track record if they've done things before, and they have brought projects to completion.
and I mean, I think, okay, we hope, if the city helps them out a little bit, and they're successful, and this building gets done, and they're happy, and they feel supported by the city of Frostburg, maybe they take on the next building.
But there again, we have established the precedent of come to us and we will help you with what the bank can't do.
And, I mean, this is, to that, I'd say,
But they're all gonna have to go through the George board, you know, that's,
and the George Board may or may not have money then, and,
so, I mean, is that what we're gonna ride on here?
well,
Well, they don't necessarily need to go through the George Board, because, I mean, I could go to the bank and the bank says, I'll give you $200,000. George Board doesn't exist, I'm gonna come to the city now and say, I need $50,000 to finish this project, or this building's just gonna sit like this. And that's what's been held over our heads for years, is, well, I'll just let the building sit. And it gets, I mean, what, 5, 6, 7 buildings
Right.
at various stages of boarded up right down the street, you know, it's ridiculous.
But I think too, and I'm completely with you, Donnie, I completely agree with that, but I think too, if we have an opportunity to turn one of them around, maybe, and again, I mean, I know we're rolling the dice, we don't know that this is gonna be successful.
Yeah, it's gonna be a gamble.
But if we turn one of them around,
the other, I mean, Donnie, to your point, there's jurisdictions that tax vacant storefronts, vacant buildings. Maybe you do that, and then you create a fund to put
Yeah,
into these
right,
other buildings.
right.
I'd be happy, I mean, we talked about that over the years, and,
I'm all for
I
that.
think something needs to be done, because again, I'd love to know what we have put in to some of these buildings just in the past 10 years. You know, that are still sitting and look exactly like they did the day we gave people the money.
Yeah, I mean, and I know that happened with the Pritchard building, and it still sits.
I mean, like I said, if this company has a track record of success, if they've done things before, and it's $25,000. We're not talking $100,000. We're not talking $200,000. I think compared to the investment that other groups are putting in, I mean, George Board's going to end up putting in $550,000. The county's willing to jump in the boat with us.
And I see what you're thinking,
Why don't
Donnie.
you cut something out there?
Well, flip-flop, because we don't wanna give a grant with ARPA money because of the sub-recipient monitoring that comes along with it. So, but by paying for the audit,
I would say this,
What about the 30,000 being saved if we move rental housing inspections inside or in-house?
so that would go to the landscaper.
Part-time landscaper we're going to hire.
And,
And paying
and a
full-time.
part-time replacement for Jay. Okay. And in terms of like precedent, I think the city is in a unique financial situation right now that you can look at the interest earned and say, we have a little extra money that we can do this right now. But in 2 years, things probably will be tighter and you might not be in a position to do that.
And
So-
if we do it, hypothetically, let's walk down this road for a second. If we do it and it's successful and they get the building operating and they get it full, that gives us time, if we have a year or 2 years or whatever, to plan for the next time someone asks us for this, to come up with criteria. And I'm not saying we want to continue to do this all the time, but if someone asks us again, well, hey, you did it for them, that gives us time to draft rules essentially, or criteria of what somebody would have to do in order to get that. It would have to be less than 5% of the total cost, you'd have to demonstrate other funding, we'd have to trust your track record, we'd have to whatever, build the rules.
And I'm willing to do the inspections on work completed before reimbursement if necessary. So if they said, we're gonna spend the $25,000 you gave us on flooring, okay, well, you don't get it until the new floor's in. I mean, I can do those inspections if need be. Structural, water, whatever.
I mean, I'm apprehensive about it, and I don't want it to be a pattern, but I think for the other people that are willing to jump in the boat with us, the county's willing to jump in, the Georgeport willing to jump in.
Yeah, it's not a huge risk.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing that was bothering me, this amount seems fairly small. The only thing that's bothering me was the precedent, but if we set up something for the future, and I really would not mind starting to levy some fees or whatever on you.
I can start looking into that.
Yeah, that's fine, and that's a good way for us to recoup it, and again,
Yeah.
so if it ends up being successful, if we do this, we develop the vacant storefront tax, whatever we decide to call it, put that in a fund,
Yeah.
maybe that's money we could use in the future for that.
Okay, so, I knew that was gonna require a lot of discussion, so I didn't put that under a council meeting topic, but is everyone okay with moving that to a votable resolution next week?
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
okay. One more thing that came to my attention today that also will need to be a resolution, Donnie's other favorite subject, opioid litigation. Your opioid attorney, we got a email from someone, one of the attorneys. They're asking the city to dismiss Value Drug from its opioid complaint. The reason being, the national trial team has done a financial analysis of Value Drug and concluded that there's no money to recoup because of the company's financial situation. So they have a form for you to sign, but it needs to be passed by resolution before you can dismiss them. So that would just be a resolution for the mayor to sign.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, item G, any other general discussion, anything that we've forgotten or not mentioned? Mrs. Arnone, welcome to the meeting. We don't normally do public comment during the work session, but is there anything you want to talk about? No. Okay. Okay. All right, if there's nothing else then, I suppose this meeting's adjourned.
Hold tight for a second, Dr.